us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Yes, stand and observe the silence. Could you all stand to observe 1 minute silence in memory of the Honourable Lindsay Bolden, former Minister of Transport, and also the mother of the Attorney General of Oregon.
Who is speaking to? Sandy.
This House is in session. Minutes for the meeting held on Tuesday, 5th of November 2024 to be deferred. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the aforesaid minutes be deferred.
Bailey, second that.
Question is that the aforementioned minutes be deferred. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. The aforementioned minutes are hereby deferred.
Thank you, Egan, the boss using the microphone that the answer, the reverend.
Speaking?
I am received a message from the Honourable the Senate to the Honourable the House of Assembly. The Honourable the Senate has the honour to inform the Honourable the House of Assembly that at its sitting on Friday, 8th November 2024, the Merchant Shipping Bill 2024 was amended in the following terms. Clause 57, the word BPI was deleted and the words central bank substituted therefore. Clause 64, 1, the words shall mean were deleted and the words shall maintain substituted therefore. And the Honourable Senate transmit the amended bill to the Honourable House of Assembly inviting concurrence in the amendments to the bill. Signed, President, dated the 8th day of November 2024.
Messages from Her Excellency the President, petitions, papers, government notices.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of a resolution that the Honourable the House of Assembly concur in the amendments made by the Honourable the Senate to the Merchant Shipping Bill 2024.
Private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first readings of bills.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the withdrawal of order number 12 on the order paper, the Maritime and Underwater Heritage Bill 2024, dated the 7th of November, and to replace it with the Maritime and Underwater Heritage Bill 2024, dated the 11th of November 2024.
Beg the second motion.
Question that order 12 be withdrawn and substituted therefore. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. Honorable Leader, Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Business Barbados Bill 2024 and also the first reading of the Maritime and Underwater Heritage Bill 2024.
Beg the second, sir.
Question is that the aforementioned bills be read a first time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motion for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Honorable Leader, Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of Standing Orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, subsection 5, 43, and 44 for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Beg the second.
The question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day sitting. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended for the remainder of the day sitting.
Government business, sir.
Government business is the order of the day.
You got a resolution, did you? In the name of the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, to move the passing of a resolution to approve in accordance with Section 2 of the Special Loans Act, Cap 105, the borrowing by the government of the sum of approximately 600 million Barbados dollars from CIBC, Caribbean Bank, Barbados Limited, Scotia Bank, Barbados Limited, and RBC Royal Bank, Barbados Limited, on the terms and conditions contained in a sustainability-linked syndicated facility agreement, the main provisions of which are set out in the schedule, the proceeds of which will be used to buy back an approximate equivalent amount in high cost of government of Barbados debt.
Honorable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Before we begin, sir, through you, I want to wish all males in Barbados a happy International Men's Day. I know we don't often get to celebrate such things, but I think it was important this morning to start off on that note, sir. So, thank you. We have come here, sir, and I'm mindful of the short description that the clerk read in his introduction to this bill, because a lot has been said, sir, about the level of debt that this country has. And I want to assure the country through you, sir, as we have been reporting since coming to office, that the debt restructuring that we undertook in 2018, sir, was as a result of the fiscal indiscipline that was practiced by the Democratic Labour Party administration prior to us taking office, sir. And therefore, we have had to make adjustments in order to improve the delivery of services for the country. And it's coincidental, sir, that as we are here today, discussing this particular piece of debt, Barbadians would be reminded, sir, of when the South Coast sewage plant, sir, when sewage was flowing in the streets of Barbados for nearly 3 years, unfettered, sir, to the point where we were given multiple travel advisories, warning people as to what they may face if they choose to come to Barbados. And it was a point of shame, sir, for all of us as Barbadians, because no responsible government in our contemplation, sir, would have sewage running freely in the streets for 3 years with no solution in sight. Of course, sir, you know that the Honourable Member for Christchurch East led a very robust response, sir, by this government, having identified it as mission critical, that we would ensure there was a temporary fix whilst we sought a long-term solution to be able to resolve the matters as it related to the South Coast sewage plant. And let it not be said that it was not only the South Coast sewage plant, sir, that was impacted, but we all remember, sir, the large pumpkins that were growing at Bridgetown, which just spoke to the lack of care and attention that the last government foisted upon the people of Barbados. So a lot has been said since then, sir, about the level of debt and what we had to do and those concerns. And legitimately so, from the perspective that if you only look at the number as opposed to the quality of public goods and public services and what Barbadians have been able to see as a result of the interventions of this government, I think any reasonable Barbadian will attest that a number of the range of services have been able to have been improved. Nothing is perfect, but a lot of the services have been improved, sir. And the extent to which we are now seeing I use the term return to normality, not to convey that we are going back to the so-called good old days, but to reinforce in Barbadians' minds that when we speak of transformation and wanting to see improvements, it means that you must do things differently, sir. You would recall, sir, there were many a year when Barbadians would be glued to their television sets or radios coming to this place to hear what the Minister of Finance will conjure by way of new taxation, sir. That has not been the lived reality of Barbadians under this government. And I start there, sir, because ordinarily, under the last government, in order to finance solutions like that, sir, it would have meant some set of taxation. And I will expand further on that. But we have put together, sir, through this particular transaction, an opportunity for us to be able, not just to, in this case, sir, through the special loans to issue $600 million. But the use of this $600 million, sir, is to repurchase existing debt, which is currently, some of it is currently now, the interest rate is at as high as 8%, sir. And we are going to repurchase some of that debt in order to reissue at a lower level in order to be able to finance, sir, the upgrade of the South Coast sewage plant. Now, why is this important, sir? Because I think Barbadians will have heard on more than one occasion, we speak to the fact that there has been, because of the debt situation that we were faced with, we had to restructure in order to create fiscal space, sir, meaning resources to purchase garbage trucks, resources to purchase buses, sir, resources to be able to expand the capacity of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, resources, sir, to be able to address a myriad of issues, resources to fix roads and a whole range of other things that Barbadians were crying out for. And therefore, we have had to find ways to be able to deliver on government's overall mandate, sir, under very constrained circumstances. Of course, we had COVID and a range of other things in the middle there as well, sir. But I believe we've been able to find ways to create the space to do some of the very critical things that we have identified as part of the mission critical agenda. The fact that it's taken as long as this, sir, in relation to finding this particular intervention is regretted, but I believe that the long-term sustainability of our efforts and what we are trying to do to build climate resilience and to be able to be responsible, not just as a country, but certainly as a people, to be responsible, I think is important to appreciate. You would recall, sir, that 2 years ago, we came to this place and we did a debt for nature swap. And let me remind the country through you, sir, that when we did that debt for nature swap, debt for nature swap, all over the place now you see the marine spatial planning work taking place. They're all over Barbados, engaging Barbadians, sir. The Barbados Environmental Sustainability Fund was set up. The Marine Spatial Planning Unit has been set up, working alongside the Coastal Zone Management Unit, sir, all over Barbados, engaging Barbadians around what we will do in relation to the marine environment and to be able to plan out sustainable use of that particular Barbadian asset, the ocean. Now, of course, sir, as you know full well, when we came to office, the sewage was flowing on the streets, but also flowing into the marine space, sir. It was also flowing into the Graham Hall swamp, sir. And I know that the honourable member who is the MP for that area is more than familiar with the impact that it had on the residents of that constituency, as well as the other surrounding areas, but more broadly, sir, the country. And therefore, the impact that it had on the natural environment, sir, the natural environment was significant. And whilst I know as Barbadians, as people, we would tend to focus a lot more perhaps on the economics and the health and and that side of things, there was a significant marine as well as environmental impact of really, sir, what could only be described as a dereliction of duty by a government that allowed this thing to happen for 3 years without any resolution in sight, sir. And I raised that because as we did the debt swap 2 years ago to focus on how to preserve and enhance our environmental sustainability efforts, the fact that we had a sewage plant discharging effluent, sir, all across Barbados, in the beaches, sir. If you recall, sir, even some of the members of that government went swimming in it, which was, I think, a point of shame, personal shame. but they sought to view it as some type of political stunt. But the reality is, sir, is that there was a significant environmental impact in relation to that. What we are seeking to do with this specific intervention, sir, is consistent with government's policy of treating to the environment in the same way that we would treat to the economic, sir, to the public health issues, to the social development issues, sir, because as a small state, stability is really our only asset, and stability has many facets, sir. But whatever we do onshore impacts the offshore environment, sir, and therefore we must not separate the two. And therefore, this particular resolution today is just a step to demonstrate that our policy has been coherent, sir, from day one. From day one. And rather than now having the continued discharge of effluent into the marine space, we will be upgrading the South Coast Sewage Plant, which to tertiary, sir. As you are well aware, sir, the Bridgetown Sewage Plant is also being upgraded to tertiary level, sir. And this is part of how Barbados' long-term trajectory, sir, and quite frankly, sir, our climate resilience, given that we have been exposed to, I mean, in recent days, one might not believe it, with the volume of rain that has been falling, but as you know, sir, as soon as we turn the year, the ground will start to open up dry, sir, as it does in January, February, and March, because the drought conditions have been getting harsher and harsher. We've been getting more intense rains, causing localized flooding, and a lot of that water, because of the force of it, sir, has been running into the ocean. I know that we're trying to do as much rainwater harvesting as we can, but as you know, sir, if you put the infrastructure in one place, but the rain falls somewhere else, then it with the intensity that it does, as well as the capacity, because you would appreciate, sir, that we've been having some very intense rains, which has been pretty much overwhelming the existing infrastructure simply because it's not been able to accommodate the volumes of water within such a short space of time, and therefore having some challenges across the country. And this is part of the climate change impact, and we are trying our best, sir, to make sure that Barbados is not exposed over the long term. So we're here today, sir, to deal with the financing of this. But I'm saying to Barbadians, sir, that in the same way that the previous debt swap allowed us to be able to use existing debt service, and we are putting monies every 6 months, sir, into the Environmental Sustainability Fund, which is allowing the Marine Spatial Plan and the other stakeholders to be able to use those interest payments to deal with the marine work and milestones that we agreed to under that specific transaction. What we recognize here, sir, is that in order for us to be able to get a new plant that will serve the long-term interests of Barbados, sir, it meant that we had to work with the Inter-American Development Bank as we did with the previous debt swap. We also worked with the European Investment Bank, sir, on the guarantee side, again, as well as we work with the Green Climate Fund, sir. And these local banks, as the intermediaries, sir, to be able to execute this particular transaction here today. But of course, sir, we cannot wait 15 or 20 years, sir, to upgrade a plant, because the plant needs financing to be able to be upgraded. And therefore, we have entered into an arrangement, sir, where the savings from this particular transaction that we will see over the course of the 20 years, these savings will approximate to roughly about 150 million US dollars, sir. And therefore, if you accept, sir, over that period of time, we borrow the money up front, sir, to build the plant and the related infrastructure, and use the savings to pay off the capital loan that we are going to incur from IDB as well as the GCF in part, then, in fact, sir, we would not have increased the debt at all, but the debt service, the total debt service, sir, would mean that we've been able to redeploy. If we do nothing, if we did not do this transaction today, sir, the debt is going to be paid, sir, and it will continue to be paid. And if we wanted to build a plant, sir, it would mean we have to go separately and borrow money specifically to do that, simply because we don't have a pool of money readily available to build a plant, which would increase debt. So this specific arrangement, sir, allows us to do a couple of things. We buy back the debt at a cheaper interest rate, 3.25. I'll go through the details a little bit later on the term sheet of the transaction itself that we're here to discuss. But I'm saying to Barbadians that as we are doing this buyback at a cheaper interest rate, we will at the same time, sir, in order to construct the plant, sir, in order to construct the plant and the other infrastructure which is related to mains replacement for moving water for agricultural purposes, as well as some PV facilities as well to be able to do that, we will be issuing in terms of borrowing from IDB as well as GCF, the upfront capital costs to actually build the plant, sir. And the savings will finance the repayment of that loan. So that when you look at the overall debt structure for the country, at the end of all of this transaction, sir, the country would not have incurred any new debt. But once we're able to issue the tender, and if I'm not mistaken, it's either later this month or very early in December, sir, where we will be issuing the tender for the contractor to start the work, so which is why we need to get the transaction completed, that within the course of 18 months to 2 years, we should have a functioning tertiary treatment plant at Graham Hall, serving the long-term interests of Barbadians, sir, and we would have done so, sir, without, sir, having to increase debt to the country. And I think that it's been long in coming in relation to getting to this stage, but I believe that this is the best deal that we could achieve, short of somebody saying, sir, they can give you $110 million to build the plant and give you grant money to do it, sir. And therefore, this particular transaction is significant because as we have been meeting our target, sir, and as Barbadians have been seeing that the government has been responding to the things that humbugging them, sir, and notwithstanding the fact that a lot of what we have been experiencing is driven in a large part by what has been happening outside of Barbados, sir, the government has been focused on ensuring that the structural matters that Barbadians have collectively been not just complaining, but agitating for solutions, that we have been focused on delivering those things. Now, sir, we have had to work, as I said, in this case, and with 3 banks. CIBC, First Caribbean, but I think they just rebranded. When we started the process, it was First Caribbean. They rebranded to CIBC sometime in the last year, I believe, sir. But anyhow, everybody knows it was either CIBC or First Caribbean. They know what I mean. Scotiabank, as well as RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, sir, 3 banks will participate in this buyback. CIBC, sir, will purchase up to $360 million of the $600 million that we are seeking to buy back here, sir. Royal Bank will be 140, and Scotiabank will be 100 million roughly in relation to the syndication, sir, with respect to the buyback. And this is significant because, as you would appreciate, sir, this is perhaps the single largest single transaction that the government has ever undertaken. And therefore, in order for us to be able to scale and get the type of savings that we know we can get to do this deal, to get this mission critical component that we set as a political party, all of us, sir, all of us in here, sign that document, sir, all of us in here, in some form or fashion. If I'm looking around the room, there may be those that came in after, but in principle, sir, all of us in here, I can safely say all of us in here, agreed and signed that document identifying what was mission critical. And therefore, this really is a critical step in bringing a solution to a problem that was humbugging Barbadians unresolved for 3 full years. And I believe that notwithstanding the fact that we were interrupted with COVID and a range of other things, that we had to focus on the things that were very basic for Barbadians, I can say to you, sir, that in any part of the world, water and sanitation, sir, next to law and order, water and sanitation, sir, they are the 2 most critical things that any society, in wanting to say that it is following any development modality, water and sanitation is the very basic things, sir, that any government must be able to demonstrate a commitment to resolving issues. Now, we know, sir, that our mains need replacing, and this government certainly has been putting monies into the Water Authority to be able to advance the mains replacement program across the country. And we will continue, sir, to do that mains replacement, because you remember, sir, all too well, that that the northern part of Barbados, again, was all at that time that the sewage was flowing in the south. There were about 5 or 6 parishes in the northern part of Barbados, sir, at the same time that were experiencing acute water shortages, sir. And there was no investment at that time by the then government to bring relief to people, sir. And this Barbados Labour Party government, sir, identified that too as a mission critical issue. And because we were able to restructure the debt, sir, it took some time. I know the member for St. Peter can attest to that. The member for St. Lucie can attest. The member for St. Andrew and St. Joseph, St. John, St. Thomas, sir, and parts of northern St. James can attest. Whilst it took, and I know the members were quite agitated that they needed to get resolution for their constituents, and as a government, we put measures in place to be able to at least to resolve to a large part the access to water by building new reservoirs, putting in new mains. The honourable member for it started with the honourable member for Christchurch East when he was responsible, and then when the member for St. Michael West Central was the minister, and it continued under the Deputy Prime Minister, the member for St. Michael Southeast, sir. This government, sir, has been responsible in prioritizing, sir, investment in the water and sanitation. Sir, this is nothing to really boast about, you know, sir, because it demonstrated the lack of investment, sir, that is required to keep pace with the changing world. Because the last government, sir, refused to make those investments, those responsible investments, sir, that saw sewage flowing on the southern part of the country for 3 years, whilst at the same time, sir, acute water shortages across the north of the country. But we have responded, sir. And yes, there are a few little, some areas that need to be addressed. But this government has been responding, sir, and we shall continue to respond because we have been making sure, sir, that we can finance a sustainable set of solutions to bring to Barbadians. But it can't happen without money, sir. Now, we can go back to the Auditor General's report, sir, that were written and presented in this chamber, sir, that cited the absolute waste of money that happened again during the last administration, sir. Within the same water sector, sir, including the new building and a whole set of other things that were not priorities, sir, in relation to delivering the water and sanitation mandate to people. Because if people can't get water and sewage flowing on the street, how can it be a priority, sir, to build a new building? How? But that's the record, sir, of the Democratic Labour Party. That's not the record of the Barbados Labour Party. The record of the Barbados Labour Party, sir, has been to respond to the very things that ordinary Barbadians, sir, require of a responsible government. And we are not going to shy away, sir, from that responsibility because our record, sir, is second to none in this space. It's second to none on the management of the economy, sir. It's second to none in transportation. It's second to none in energy, sir. You go second to none shortly in housing. You look across the areas that Barbadians want to see resolution, sir, and this government, sir, has been responding. So when we come here today, sir, to have a discussion about this particular transaction, I want Barbadians to appreciate that everything is linked, you know, sir. Everything is linked. And the government don't just wake up and decide that they can buy back debt just so. It is for a purpose. And that purpose, sir, is to ensure that going forward, one, we don't have sewage flowing in the streets like how it was under the Democratic Labour Party, sir. Two, you don't have sewage flowing into the Graham Hall Swamp, our nature sanctuary, sir. Is perhaps the only place of that type of wetlands and environmental beauty, if you like, sir, in Barbados. You understand? It has value, sir. And what we do affects there. It also affects the water quality near shore as well, sir. And therefore, as a responsible government, we have to explain the things that we are doing, sir, to improve people's lives. Now, you can't improve something, sir, without some type of disruption, you know. You cannot improve something without some set of disruption. So I know when the Honourable Minister was up late at night digging up the South Coast, trying to figure out where the thing was leaking, sir, the rest was sleeping. They were asleep on the job when they had it, sir. And now walking about Barbados trying to pretend as if they're concerned about water issues for people. When they left people, sir, almost for dead. For 3-4 years in the north, sir, they may lay a pipe and build a reservoir and do nothing, sir, for people. But no want to pretend as if they're concerned about water issues for people. But I said no, sir. No. This government's record on water and sanitation, sir, is second to none. And I am a proud member of this government. As we go the length and breadth of this country to explain what we're doing, sir, we shall remind people, sir. Yes, there are going to be some irritants, because when you're trying to do something, sir, it don't happen perfect from A to Z. But we have been able to respond to the large measure, the majority of the issues in this country, sir. And we shall continue to respond to the issues in this country, sir. And therefore, let it be known, sir, that we ain't running from the responsibility of governing, sir. Because when we show up and we listen to people's concerns, sir, we go away, we find the appropriate solution, sir. And sometimes, sir, you know, everybody wants everything to happen with the snap of a finger. life does not work like that, sir. Life does not work like that. Because if I spend the money, sir, I've said to you on more than one occasion, I have not yet learned how to spend money twice. If I spend money on this, sir, I cannot spend money on this. And therefore, what we have been trying to do is to be responsible as a government, sir. Responsible, whilst responsive to the issues that continue to confront this country and the region and the world for that matter, sir. Because Barbados is not alone in this fight. And as a Christchurch MP, sir, we have seen, whilst we've been able to resolve matters in the north, as mains are being replaced and the pressure is being, so it's almost like a perfect storm. As you know, sir, the mains were put down probably over 100 and something years ago. You understand? When there was an empire. And Barbados ain't got no empire, sir. Then we don't got no indentured servants to come in and say, lay that pipe there. Because I know my good friend is the member for St. George North and said, no way. And rightfully so. And rightfully so. We can't just go and take up people's things and bring and say we can lay a pipe in Barbados or whatever it is, sir, just so. We don't have that luxury. And therefore, we have been putting money on budget to replace mains right across the country. But in recent times, we have seen within the Christchurch and Phillip area, as we've been replacing mains, sir, the outages coming. We've been encouraging people, sir, to get the water tanks in order to allow us to do a much accelerated implementation of the mains replacement. Because at the end of the day, sir, if Barbadians respond to, because you could do one or two things, sir. You can get a tank from the water authority and pay for it over 2 years on your water bill, sir. Or, as the government has done this year, sir, we have waived, and let me remind the public through you, sir, that we have waived the VAT on the tanks, the water pumps, and all of those things to make sure that the installation is much more affordable. But we ain't just waiving it because we want to waive it, sir, and say that we waive it, sir. We want to be able to ensure that we have community by community, the adoption of these mechanisms, because when the disruption happens, sir, you don't even notice because you got your water tank there. But two, it allows us then to be more aggressive, sir, with the mains replacement across Barbados. If we can say, only by example, sir, if we tell the Kingston Endurance and that area that water authority coming in and pulling out the main this weekend, everybody got a water tank, sir. It means that water authority can work, sir, to replace them by Monday morning. They know that whatever section that they've done, they have done. These are the kinds of things that will allow Beijing, sir, to see a better experience, and we are working to coordinate and to achieve that. But it can only happen, sir, effectively, because at the end of the day, water authority only got some tanks, water tanks, sir. And if the water tanks in Kingston, they can be in Endurance, they can be in Regency Park, they can be in Calendars, they can be in Enterprise, sir. It's a logistics issue. And so as we have been resolving the issue, some of these issues, members, if they drive up to the Henry Ford roundabout, they will see some lovely blue pipe there where that going up to the ball section of the highway. And that is to ensure that, having built the new reservoir there by Rising Sun, that the issues with respect to water outages can be reduced for that entire area, sir, from Newton to Kingston to Calendars on the eastern side, Thornbury Hill, sir, that section, Gore Hill and Wharton, and that entire area, sir, in relation to being able to ensure that people can continue to have access to water. But we're saying to Barbadians that there will be disruption. And if a pipe bursts, the pipe don't tell the water authority that it can burst at 3 o'clock in the morning, no, sir. The pipe don't say that they can burst at that time. You can get disruption. And therefore, as we go through this process of not just upgrading the plant to tertiary and all of these things, there's some things that I know the institution has to do. There are some commitments that is here, which I will share with the public in relation to what the BWA will be required to do in exchange for a commitment for lower financing costs and to be able to achieve these issues. But the reality is that at the end of the day, there are still some humbugs across communities in Barbados where service lines are not being addressed as quickly as possible. These are some of the things that humbugging people about the management of water. And therefore, I know that we have been working to be able to address some of these issues. And therefore, as we work through the mechanics of being able to transform the way that the entity is able to respond to these things across Barbados, I'm saying to Barbados that there's some big things that have to be done, but there are also some small things that the institution, the Barbados Water Authority, also they have to do in order to meet the needs, sir, of people to ensure that we continue to keep faith with the Barbadian public. And these are important, sir, very, 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 very important. And therefore, that institutional strengthening and I know that process has started in relation to being able to address some of the things that more directly impact people, but a burst pipe here and a burst pipe there, those are complete annoyances and have to be addressed because it is going to be important to have those addressed because once we're able to have these facilities upgraded and our ability then to manage our water resources is better enhanced, then it means that efficiencies right across the system would have to be seen and felt by ordinary Barbadians. So it is a matter of public record, really, that the Water Authority has been certainly more responsible because as the executing agency, the Water Authority has worked with, again, the private sector to be able to deliver the many reservoirs, new reservoirs, mains replacement, replacement of mains, right across Barbados. These are the people, these are Bajans, sir. Bajans getting up every day working to help improve the delivery of water for Bajans, you know. And they have been able to do so. But they've been able to do so because the government, sir, thinking, I don't like to say outside the box, sir, because some people's box may be a little smaller than some. And therefore, to the extent that we have been focused on finding creative solutions such that whether it's the Water Authority or any of the other state agencies can effectively deliver on their mandate, sir, this government, through its prudent fiscal management, have been able to allocate resources to allow these institutions to be able to live up, in part, sir, to the mandate. And I know that the history is still there for some people, but I think that deep down, sir, most Bajans, if they're in their reflective moments, will say that yes, whilst things are not perfect, and I don't know that there was ever a time that things were perfect, but the reality is this government, on the substance, sir, major challenge, and we have been able to dedicate resources directly from the budget. We've been able to get grant resources through our advocacy under the Bridgetown Initiative to be able to bring in grant resources to be able to respond to these challenges, sir. And therefore, it should not be lost upon Barbadians that when we go to Washington or any other capital in the world to make a case, sir, for why a small state like Barbados, very vulnerable, in almost on all fronts, but very vulnerable, should have the policy space and to be able to have access to either more grant financing or concessional funding to be able to deliver for Barbadians when there's been a decade, which we refer to as the lost decade, but the decade where there was little or no investment in the future of this country. And therefore, we've had to work double time, sir, triple time, quadruple time, in order to make sure that we can help to foster and deliver a new a more sustainable path. But doing so against almost, sometimes, sir, it feels as if you're going against the currents because there's always something, sir, around the corner lurking, trying to disrupt the progress that you've made. But we's Barbados, sir, and we don't give up. And this government, certainly, sir, has been committed to the cause to make sure that it is not just fancy transactions, but these things resonate. Get it from St. Lucie, sir, to St. Philip in some form or fashion, and that people can make a connection, sir, to what the government is doing. And so this transaction is absolutely important. As I reflect now, sir, on the, there are not many times when you really reflect on how an instance of a financial transaction like this has a long-lasting impact on the country. And whilst the historic nature of it is critical, I think when we look back 25 years from now, sir, when we look back and what I hope will be a truly transformed Barbados, I think we will look back on this International Men's Day, sir, as the day that we were able to chart a clearer path, sir, for the sustainability of Barbados' future. Because these types of things, sir, don't come along too often. And therefore, I must say that this is truly part of the transformation, but the delivery of that transformation is outlined in terms of what I said earlier in relation to how people on the ground, sir, see an improved Barbados Water Authority, sir, more access and predictable access to water, sir, a kind of resilience that means less inconvenience to them in their daily lives, and therefore it is to ensure that we have, as I said, a more sustainable future. But that now has to be delivered, sir, and will be delivered by Barbadians for Barbadians, based on the work that we've been able to do to be able to bring this particular transaction here. Now, sir, let me just move on quickly, just to cite the terms and conditions for the record of the House, which are in the schedule. And so the facility, as it says, is a fixed rate sustainability-linked loan. The facility arranger is CIBC Caribbean Bank. The lenders, as I said earlier, are CIBC, Scotiabank, and Royal Bank. And I gave the breakdown in relation to, so CIBC 360 million, Scotiabank and Royal Bank will be up to 140, and as I indicated, Scotiabank up to 100, and RBC up to 140. And the amount we are buying back is the 600 million. Interest rate, sir, is 3.25%. And as I mentioned earlier, sir, as I told, part of the portfolio is currently, the interest rate is currently 8%. Another part of the portfolio is 4.75, another part is 4.25, we believe, that we are targeting for the buyback. Now, so there are some sustainability performance targets, sir, which have been agreed, and I will refer to those a little later. The term will be 20 years, sir, a grace period of 5 years and 3 months, sir. 5 years and 3 months grace period. It will mature, sir, in October of 2044, obviously 20 years. The repayment, 1.67% of the disbursed amount each quarter. And you have approximately 60 quarterly payments of $9,990 commencing in January 31st of 2030. So this, just for the benefit of the public, sir, through you, What this effectively means, sir, is that if we did nothing, right now, if we did nothing, that 5 years and 3 months that I just referred to, the government of Barbados would have to pay on the existing debt, which is already at a higher interest rate, will have to continue paying the debt service. With this grace period, it means that we have some space, if you like, before we have to start repaying these creditors the loan. Now, typically, we have had in the past not a lot of, well, when we restructured the debt, the grace period that we had in our restructured debt was 4 years. We're now seeing 5 years and 3 months in relation to this. Now, one could interpret this one or two ways, yeah? But I prefer to look at it as the fact that we've been able to demonstrate the responsibility of government. We've been able to meet our targets under the fund program and other supported by the IDB and CAF and others in relation to what we've been doing. And therefore, people see the confidence as being demonstrated now with the upgrade, sir, as being able to say, look, we are confident in the fiscal management of the government, and therefore we can online and be able to have a grace period which is outside, a little outside of what was the norm in relation to what happened with the restructured debt. So we have some space, if you like, sir, with respect to being able to deal with this. But as I said, space only insofar as the fact that the repayments for this particular facility will start in 5 years, in January of 2030. And then there's some other, but yes, importantly as well, sir, is that there is the natural disaster as well as the pandemic clause. You remember, sir, that when we did the debt restructuring, we included in all of the new debt the natural disaster clauses, which effectively says to the creditors, sir, all persons who hold the debt, that should there be a significant event that triggers the CRIF payout over the threshold, that the government of Barbados would be able to suspend debt service for 2 years. Okay? For 2 years, we will capitalize the interest, put it at the back end, and allow the government to be able to help accelerate and fast-track the recovery efforts, which will be critical, sir. Will be critical in relation to a circumstance where the country may require significant resources to respond, and therefore the natural disaster clause is embedded in there. The pandemic clause as well, which came about because, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic is equally there, because when we did the debt restructuring in 2018, the concept of a pandemic at that time was not on anybody's mind, but clearly we saw during COVID that the impact on the economy meant that people still had to make decisions about how to respond to the crisis. So both clauses are here, which is consistent with what we did with the first debt swap, and therefore these are important features which gives, as I said, sir, the creditors certainty that if something happened from a natural disaster or a pandemic, that there's an ordered process for how the debt service will be paid, rather than holding a piece of paper and I'm trying to figure out, sir, whether the government or the Ministry of Finance actually has the capacity to be able to pay. So the 2 years debt pause with respect to the natural disaster and pandemic clauses are embedded in this particular agreement in order to ensure that we have that space. Let me just very quickly, sir, turn to a few of the commitments that, as part of what we are doing here, that the BWA would have to, well, it's a BWA, but it's really government, but predominantly will have an impact on the BWA in relation to what we have to commit to. But so remember I said, sir, that the total savings is approximately 150 million, roughly US dollars. The cost of the plant, the laying of the pipes, the PV facility, and all of that should come to roughly 110 million. We have in some contingency for 10, so roughly 100, so 110 million US, at most 120. So we've agreed that once the plant is completed and we know exactly where we will land, where those extra savings between the 110, so up to 40, if we accept that 110 is the cost for everything, up to 40 million in additional savings that the Water Authority will be able to use that money for. And some of the eligible resilience, and I'll just read, sir, for your benefit. The obviously investment under the South Coast Water Reclamation Project, including pipelines for immigration and groundwater recharge areas, the groundwater recharge facilities, installation of solar panels and associated battery energy storage, environmental monitoring management programs at Graham Hall Wetlands, which will be pre-financed through an investment loan facility, non-revenue water interventions, which means, sir, fixing leaking pipes. That's the fancy thing for non-revenue water, such as restructuring and rehabilitating the water network, improving pressure management, leak detection, network repair, equipment and asset management, system purchases, satellite data, and a whole list of things. Improvements in the wastewater infrastructure, sir, such as additional sewage connections, institutional strengthening activities such as training, capacity building, and consultancies around the topics there, as well as better financial management within the Water Authority itself, managing this climate disaster risk financing in relation to what happens to the utility when something happens, and being able to have, in a sense, in the same way that government has the disaster risk financing strategy and policy, to ensure that the utility equally has a similar type of arrangement that allows it to be able to map the associated risk and at least have some mechanism for intervention separate and apart from what government may have to provide for it to do. But very quickly to some of the resilience, sir, commitments. Establishment of a water resilience steering committee. Because as you know, sir, we've been talking about Barbados being the 15th most water scarce country in the world for as long as I know myself, sir. And therefore, this is intended to make sure that the investments that we make, that we started to make, but just to make sure there's a coordinated approach around that we have a water resilience steering committee. Commitment to improving wastewater infrastructure, sir. So basically the development of a water and sanitation master plan, sir, because clearly under the last administration, they had no plan. They didn't even recognize that it was a problem because of how they treated people across the country from the north to the south. And therefore, the idea here is to have a master plan that will look over a 30-year horizon, Mr. Speaker, a 30-year horizon for being able to address certainly what is happening now, but given all of the data that we're collecting to make sure then that we have a proper plan. So issues relating to physical planning development, and as you know, with more houses mean more water connections and all of that type of thing, sir. Population projections, drinking water supply, sewage, socio-economic, environmental assessment. These are things that are embedded in there. Sludge management strategy, sir, and a roadmap for its implementation. And therefore, you have to be able to manage that as part of the process. You have to develop an investment plan to improve wastewater infrastructure. So, of course, sir, once the facilities are built, obviously operating them and the capex around the operational expenditure, as well as the maintenance in relation to what needs to be done, is going to be a critical part of this particular exercise. So I say to Barbadians that you don't build a plant today and don't do nothing for 20 years or 25 years and don't expect something can go wrong. So you have to have a different approach to the management of these facilities, sir, and therefore that's why the capacity building and training and all that type of thing is going to be important, because if you're going to make state-of-the-art investments in the equipment, then you've got to make sure you have state-of-the-art investment in the personnel to be able to run these institutions. Commitment, reduce non-revenue water losses, which means, sir, fixing the pipes, the mains, as well as the service lines. And therefore, that is part of the deal, so to speak, in relation to what BWA now has to respond to the myriad of service lines that burst across the country, as well as dealing with the structural mains that deliver water to communities. There's a milestone that speaks to the performance target defined based on APRA ratings, sir. I'm not going to get into those technical things, but that is what the language says here. Evaluation of the implementation of improvement actions identified from the performance evaluation, as well as environmental and social management planning as part of the upgrade for the South Coast. Groundwater quality monitoring and management systems, you have to be formally. That's not to say that they don't have it. This is just to make sure that every element in relation to these things now have to be properly documented, and the SOPs, the standard operating procedures, all those things are in place. As it relates to the reuse in relation to agriculture, establishing the commitment for farmers, and then there's a risk management plan to be developed as part of the commitments in relation to BWA. And then one of the critical parts really is monitoring, reporting, verification, and then obviously in relation to what you're doing, so that you know that FMF, wherever you are moving water to and from, sir, that you have the mechanism to be able to know that X thousand of liters of water left in the reservoir, they got 20 houses down there, and somehow we are seeing water based on what they're reporting in relation to their meters is not corresponding to what we are seeing leaving the reservoir. So either it means that something burst or somebody keeping the waters are somewhere in there to do something else. And therefore, these are the things that as part of monitoring and evaluation, as we have observed, that you have sometimes illegal connections and all these types of things, which when you measure, you realize that it ain't the pipe leaking, is that there are illegal connections to there, which is costing all of us, and therefore you have to be able to manage these types of things. So all of this, sir, will deliver change in some form or fashion, but ultimately it is to improve access to water and sanitation facilities across the countries for Barbadians, which I wholeheartedly support in relation to being able to address some of these issues. I want to just clarify something, sir, that was reported because it's critical to understand. It was reported in the press, so I just want to make sure that there is absolutely clarity in relation to what will take place. So in the press on, I think it was on Sunday or Monday, it was reported that persons holding Series B and D bonds will be repaid in full. And I think that information as reported was not accurate. Now, also in the press all last week and this week, the Treasury, along with the Central Bank, put out a notice in relation to invitations to persons holding Series B and Series D to participate in what is called a reverse auction, sir, in relation to the selling of their bonds as part of this transaction. And so, as opposed to what was cited in the press, the reverse auction, which is scheduled to take place on Friday, will still go ahead as the norm, where, as we did earlier this year, I think that was done with Series D, only of up to $2 million. Persons participated in that, And therefore, that reverse auction, the invitation stands in relation to interested parties, as we agreed, to be able to participate in that reverse auction. Now, the reverse auction, sir, right now, I really should have checked what it was trading at before he came this morning. Right now, if you are holding a Series B bond, you can, and you want to sell it, you can do it on the stock exchange, sir, trading in the secondary market. However, this gives an opportunity, whatever the price is on the stock market, this gives an opportunity if you're a holder of that bond, you wanted to dispense of that participation in the auction, allows you then to be able to bid a much higher price than what is currently being traded in the market. But of course, this is a one-time transaction in order to make sure that we can get this thing done. The Series E, which is held by the NIS, would be bought at par, but the reverse auction is being done in relation to Series B and D, are not being paid at par as was reported in the press. Now, Mr. Speaker, this is really just an effort by the government, sir, to responsibly put the financing in place for an intervention that humbugged this country, as I said, for 3 years, sir. But when you look at the totality of the way that water and sanitation was treated by the last administration, sir, I think it is absolutely scandalous. This government, sir, from day one, I see the honourable member for St. Michael East, he would remember those days when there was a subcommittee of cabinet, of which he was part of that subcommittee that met certainly not just every week, but almost daily at the very beginning of our administration to ensure that absolute focus was brought to resolving the sewage flowing on the streets of Barbados for the better part of 3 years. And the fact that we were able, because at that time, if you read any newspaper in Barbados, there was no solution in sight at the time. There was no solution because for 3 years, nothing was done. And people almost started to believe that nothing could be done. But we came to office and we ensured that we found a solution, though temporary, to bring relief to Bajans, so people could feel some hope that somebody paying attention to the concerns that they have. And once we were doing that, Mr. Speaker, as I repeat it, we were dealing with the parishes in the north. Parishes in the north, to bring water to them too. So it's taken us 6 years to get here in relation to the financing. Let me say very briefly, sir, that in the beginning, as the subcommittee was meeting on addressing the actual solution for, the temporary solution for the South Coast rupture, we were actively looking for financing at the time to figure out what to do with the plant. But all of the costs and combination, everything was just crazy, Mr. Speaker, because as you would appreciate, sir, we didn't have no buses at the time, we didn't have no garbage trucks. Everything in Barbados, sir, was just wrong. Everything was wrong with Barbados. Because the last government chose a different path to ignore the basic needs of Bajans, water and sanitation. Basic needs, as well as a whole range of other things too, but the basic needs of Bajans. So we've had to take our time to bring this solution. I've not addressed it before, but let me address it here now. One of the options that was available to us, as presented at the time, there was a CDB approach, or if you like, discussion, loan, but not a loan, but discussions, because we were talking with everybody about how to finance the upgrade of this plant. This government, sir, never agreed with the CDB nor anybody else about the financing of any loan for the South Coast treatment plant. So when people getting up there asking about what happened to this and the next, the third, because when you're having discussions, people start to prepare documents with the expectation that once cabinet approves and then once parliament approves that thing, so people could prepare. But this government never engaged with respect to the signing of any loan with CDB. No monies were disbursed to anybody in relation to the South Coast plant. And therefore, as I think it was, I don't remember which meeting it was at, but this process that we hear today, anytime, sir, we engaging in a loan specific to these matters, it will come here as part of a resolution, as I'm standing in this parliament, sir, today, as a man on International Men's Day, and I hope that when we are man enough to accept that when we wrong, you ain't gonna tell the whole world that you're wrong, just accept that you're wrong, and we will accept that, just don't say no more about it. Just accept that, we will accept that. But we come to this place to tell Bajans, Mr. Speaker, what we're doing on their behalf, in their name. So nobody gonna walk up Barbados trying to make it seem like this government got money and they know what happened to the money. That is not what happens with this government, sir. That's a different government, not this one. That's a different government. And all the Auditor General reports can speak to that when you go back, especially as it relates to the Barbados Water Authority under the last government. So if people are a little confused as to which government it is because somebody crossed, that's a different subject. But this government, sir, this government, we come here and we tell the people what it is we're doing with the money that we're borrowing on their behalf. And therefore, I would hope that those persons who have been seeking to sow mistrust in the public would cease and desist, sir, because this government's record in relation to debt and the transparency around what we are doing with the money, sir, is there for all to see. And I've come here on more than one occasion to say, this is where we're borrowing the money from, who you're getting it from. These are the terms and conditions. This is what we're doing with the money. And at some point, Bajans, sir, does actually see with their own eyes with the money spending. They see it with their own eyes. And so I hope, sir, that as we engage in, I hope, a responsible debate today, that the record is clear as to which government in this country has been upfront with respect to both water and sanitation, from as far as St. Lucie to Christchurch, sir, in relation to the fact that the northern parishes didn't have water for the better part of 3, almost 4 years, and this government prioritized on budget to be able to deliver that. All during COVID, things were in motion, and what we see now are really just the remaining efforts to what has been a total solution. That is not to say that what people are experiencing isn't important, sir, but I'm making this very simple point that this government, sir, has been responsive to the needs of Barbadians when it comes to water and sanitation. And therefore, this transaction here, sir, is a transformational transaction. It would allow us to implement a number of things that I know Barbadians will benefit from, and therefore I encourage Barbadians, as the Barbados Water Authority, as well as the other stakeholders, continues to engage on these matters in the same way that the Marine Spatial Plan is doing, sir, with the first deck swap. There's going to be a lot more engagement from government as well as the BWA on a whole range of matters, sir, And I hope that Barbadians will see that the government has been upfront with respect to all of these matters, and therefore hope that we work together, sir, to be able to deliver meaningful solutions in a timely manner that allows Barbados' future, sir, to be more secured. And with those few words, sir, I beg to move that this resolution do not pass. I'm blessed.
Honourable Member for Christchurch South.
I'm obliged to you, Mr. Speaker. If you notice that there's a lot of literature in front of me, those are the notes I made while the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central was speaking. I don't think I breach any national security secret in saying that ordinarily I would have received the literature from this Parliament by email, and that it seems that the recent problems in Barbados may have affected this Parliament as well. And so I could not receive that email, and I don't think I'm breaching any national security secret in saying that it may be that the organizations affected by recent breaches would now include this Parliament. And so, Your Honor, I've had to make several manual notes while the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central was speaking, except that I don't feel hampered in any way. He spoke in English, and I wrote the English that he spoke. I don't intend this to be any portrait on the member, but what I have noticed is that in recent times, he seems to present new gifts. I used to know him as a very stoic and technocratic type. He has now transfigured into a more animated and partisan political creature. And the word creature is not meant to disparage. And with his talents, I would want to warn him that since he moves from the stoic and the technocratic to the political, he may wish to be warned that those who sit on that side with him, who may be more ambitious than he is, may become a little concerned that he is now less technocratic and more political and would be seen as being as ambitious as those with far less talents than he displays. So I warn him. That is a warning to him. Now, I accuse him of being more political than he used to be, and I don't wish to say that he is also a very clever man. So clever that we now find in this House that a resolution is introduced to this country by way of a newspaper. By way of a newspaper. I read of this resolution in the newspaper before the breach email reached me. And there he was a few minutes ago, clarifying and correcting an article that appeared in the newspaper, which has to come through this House, a resolution that has to come through this House, except that he must now be considered as being complicit in the publication of an article pertaining to this resolution in a popular newspaper before it comes to this House. That is the stern stuff of which political ambition may be made. And I warn him. I warn him. He seems to take joy and great comfort in the fact that he nestles among 29. and that he regrets the departure of one. Worry not, honorable member. Worry not for me, but worry for yourself and the interpretations of your ambitions. Worry not and be careful. I worry for you. I know where you are, and I have crossed, and you know that I understand that environment. Be wary. Not it tight. But today he presents more as a partisan political creature who is seeking to ascend and bypass those of far less talents but higher elevations according to the nature of things in that place. But those are the problems that present across the aisle, and perhaps it is none of my business. Our business here today is to deal with a resolution that increases the national indebtedness, and that is something about which the country is now concerned. I take the honourable member back to his days of technocracy, and I will ask him a few questions, sir, in your presence. He may take these questions from me as being rhetorical, but I think he owes it to this country. I believe he will have an opportunity to reply, to give the answers to these questions. And they are as follows. Are debt swap arrangements pursued by countries that are experiencing difficulty in paying their debts? You're quoted in a newspaper, the honourable member is quoted in a newspaper, giving explanation to what this matter is all about. And speaking of this matter from north to south and east to west, and nowhere in that article is any mention of the basis upon which these arrangements are normally pursued. And therefore I ask the question, and I ask it again for clarity, and so that it will be heard, and so that the people of Barbados will have some representation in here when the question is asked. Are debt swap arrangements pursued by countries that are experiencing difficulty in paying their debts? I know the answer. The honourable member for Christchurch East Central is an economist of some standing, and he knows the answer. But this is no private conversation between he and I. When he rises to his feet on the next occasion that he so rises, he will tell the people of this country what is the answer to that question. Whether the basis of these arrangements rest in a country's difficulty in paying their debts. Question 2. Again, coming from me to him through you, Your Honor. He can treat this as rhetorical, but the people of Barbados are entitled to know the answer. Question 2 is this. Is government replacing local debt with foreign debt? And that is a question of particular importance. And I repeat, is government replacing local debt with foreign debt? It's a question, honourable member for Christchurch West, it's a question. You and I know the answer. My formerly stoic parliamentary colleague on the other side knows the answer. But I want him to tell the people of Barbados what is the answer to that question. Not everyone has a master's in economics. Not everyone enjoys the comfort of parliamentary life. Not everyone enjoys the luxury of access to the newspapers to explain resolutions before they come to this house. Not everyone has those luxuries. Let the honourable member, when he rises again, tell the people of this country if this government is replacing local debt with foreign debt. And I will ask the third question, which is not unrelated to the second question. Was it not government's stated objective to place more reliance on local debt? You see, we in here, the 30 of us in here, don't have the responsibility to repay these loans. The lady as far away as St. Lucie and St. Joseph and St. Andrew and St. Philip and Christchurch West, they have to repay these loans, and if not them, their children and their grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And therefore, John Citizen and Mary Citizen want to know today whether this government has not breached its earlier promise, its earlier objective to place more reliance on local debt as opposed to foreign debt. Now, we know the rationale for that. We know the rationale for that. And hopefully he will find the time away from his animated partisan effusions and discourses to return to his stoic self and his technocratic self and his learned self and his educated self and his certified self, and tell Barbadians whether government has reversed that policy objective. Question 4 is a separate question. And question 4 is unrelated to the first 3 questions, but we want an answer all the same. And since he is the honourable member who has introduced this resolution today, he must bear responsibility for all matters that flow from this resolution.